The first witness is now on the stand in the federal sex trafficking trial for Sean Diddy Combs in New York City after final jury selection and opening statements this morning.
Before we begin, viewer discretion is strongly advised. The following is for educational and entertainment purposes only. This is the verbatim federal courtroom testimony of the Sean Diddy Combs trial, as reported by Inner City Press. At the height of his power, Sean Diddy Combs believed he had it all: money, fame, control, and the loyalty of a woman he kept close for over a decade. But behind the scenes, Cassie Ventura was hiding something that not even Diddy, with all his private investigators, security, and paranoia, could fully uncover until it was too late. While he ruled over the music industry with an iron grip, she was quietly finding solace in someone far outside his world: Hollywood's rising star, Michael B. Jordan. What began as an innocent friendship turned into a secret connection, and possibly more. Now, years later, in the heat of Diddy's explosive trial, the truth is bubbling back to the surface. The timelines are aligning, the texts have resurfaced, and the whispers are growing louder. This isn't just gossip. It's a hidden chapter in a scandal that's unraveling everything. Here's what really happened between Cassie and Michael B. Jordan. Cassie Ventura was just 19 when her life changed. A model, singer, and dancer with dreams bigger than the music industry could hold, she signed to Bad Boy Records in 2006. That same year, she was swept up into a whirlwind relationship with Sean Diddy Combs, a man twice her age and 10 times as powerful. At first, it seemed like a dream: lavish trips, red carpets, high-fashion appearances, but underneath the luxury was something far darker. Diddy didn't just date Cassie, he controlled her. She couldn't publicly call him her boyfriend. She wasn't allowed to be seen alone without permission. Even her style was curated by him, down to the color of her nails and the way she wore her hair. Friends said it felt more like a role than a romance. A private source close to Cassie's early circle once said it was like she belonged to him, not with him. Over the years, Diddy's obsession with control turned their relationship into a prison. Court documents and recent testimony have revealed how far the manipulation went. Cassie was monitored, isolated, and subjected to what she later described as emotional and physical trauma. But from the outside, everything still looked perfect. For years, she smiled beside Diddy on magazine covers and Instagram posts. She performed for crowds, walked in his fashion shows, and stood in the shadow of a billionaire who insisted everything was just fine. But by 2015, cracks began to show. Cassie wasn't just unhappy. She was changing. The girl who once obeyed every rule began to disappear for longer periods. She started taking acting gigs Diddy didn't approve of. She traveled without his team. And in 2016, she took a major role in the movie Honey 3, a decision that would become a turning point. It sent her overseas to South Africa, far from Diddy's immediate control, and straight into the orbit of another man. That man? Michael B. Jordan. In the middle of filming Honey 3 in Cape Town, Cassie found herself more free than she had been in years. No security team shadowing her steps. No constant texts asking where she was. And for the first time in over a decade, she was around people who treated her like a peer, not a possession. That's when she met Michael B. Jordan. Already a rising star off the success of Fruitvale Station and Creed, Michael was in South Africa, filming a documentary project for charity. Their first meeting was reportedly brief, just a shared table at a producer's dinner party. But those close to the film crew say there was instant chemistry. Cassie, normally guarded, seemed relaxed. Michael was charismatic, but respectful. What started as small talk turned into late-night texts. And within days, they were talking more often. Cassie described Michael as present, something she wasn't used to. He asked her how she was feeling, not just what she was wearing. He wasn't a puppet master like Diddy. He didn't try to dictate her schedule. And for someone who had spent a decade in a gilded cage, that difference was intoxicating. Witnesses on set said Cassie would sneak off during breaks to take FaceTime calls, always smiling when she returned. Michael, on the other hand, kept things quiet. He never posted, never bragged. For him, it was simple. He liked her, and she needed someone to feel safe with. Meanwhile, back in Los Angeles, Diddy began to grow suspicious. He reportedly asked mutual friends if Cassie was seeing someone, but no one could confirm it. His paranoia intensified when she extended her trip an extra week after filming Wrapped, claiming she needed a break before heading back. What he didn't know, what no one outside that private circle knew, was that Cassie wasn't just taking a break from travel. She was taking a break from him. What happened next would later come to light through court testimony, text message leaks, and insider accounts. Cassie began using a burner phone. Not because she had something criminal to hide, but because she was terrified Diddy would find out she was falling for someone else. The relationship with Michael wasn't loud or performative. It was quiet, healing, but it was real. According to sources close to Cassie, Michael became her emotional anchor. Their conversations moved from flirtation to comfort. She opened up to him about her life with Diddy, the manipulation, the freak-offs, the addiction to drugs and approval. Michael didn't push her. He listened, but that only made her feel more drawn to him. And then Diddy found out. It's unclear exactly how. Some say he hacked her backup iCloud. Others claim a member of his staff tipped him off. But when Diddy confronted Cassie, he was enraged. He allegedly accused her of humiliating him, flying into a rage and smashing one of her devices. That same week, Cassie was pulled from an acting opportunity. Her social media went quiet, and behind the scenes, Diddy doubled down on surveillance, reportedly telling LA dealers not to sell to her and tightening the circle around her. But it was too late. Cassie had already crossed the emotional line, and in her mind, even if she physically returned to Diddy's mansion, her heart was somewhere else. She was in too deep with Michael. The connection wasn't just rebellion, it was relief. At one point, it said that she planned to leave Diddy entirely and start a new life, possibly with Michael. But fear, trauma, and years of psychological control weighed heavy. She didn't go. She stayed, and that decision would lead to even darker years ahead. Eventually, the affair ended. Michael backed away, reportedly telling friends that he couldn't compete with the chaos. Cassie returned to Diddy, but everything had changed. Trust was shattered, suspicion was constant, and the emotional wound never healed. When Diddy discovered the alleged affair between Cassie and Michael B. Jordan, the impact wasn't just emotional, it was nuclear. According to people close to the situation, Diddy's behavior spiraled almost overnight. He wasn't just angry, he was humiliated. And for a man obsessed with control, humiliation was the ultimate trigger. He allegedly tore through Cassie's belongings, destroying phones, hard drives, and even a laptop that he suspected contained messages and videos from Michael. According to testimony in the federal trial, Cassie admitted that Diddy's response to her interactions with other men was always volatile. But this time, it reached a new level. Diddy accused her of embarrassing him in front of the industry, telling her that her betrayal was worse than anything she had accused him of. He didn't just yell, he threatened. Not physically, not yet, but psychologically. He made it clear she belonged to him. Reports suggest Diddy went even further behind the scenes. His staff allegedly contacted talent agents, pulling Cassie out of scheduled events and reducing her public visibility. It wasn't just about jealousy, it was about retaliation. Friends Cassie had confided in began distancing themselves. Rumors swirled that anyone affiliated with Michael B. Jordan was blacklisted from events tied to Diddy's empire, including fashion, liquor, and music deals. And yet, Cassie stayed for a while. Those close to her say she felt trapped by more than just Diddy's power. There was fear, shame, the painful weight of years invested in a toxic bond. Diddy's charm would return in short bursts. He'd apologize, love bomb her, promise therapy, peace, even marriage. But then another violent outburst would rip it all apart. The Michael B. Jordan chapter may have ended, but the fallout had only begun. And as Diddy tightened the walls around her, Cassie began quietly planning her exit. Not from the relationship, but from the entire lifestyle. For Cassie, the turning point didn't come during one of Diddy's outbursts. It came during a moment of clarity, when she finally realized that no amount of apologies or gifts could erase the years of control, secrecy, and trauma. Around 2018, she began pulling away for real. Her social media posts became more sporadic. She changed management, and behind closed doors, she began therapy. But what truly snapped the last thread was what insiders call the group video. In a move that stunned even her closest confidants, Cassie recorded a message to Diddy, one that was sent not just to him, but to his personal staff. It allegedly showed Diddy with another woman. And in a cold, measured tone, Cassie called out the hypocrisy of their entire relationship. "You spent years telling me who I could talk to, who I could see, but you never stopped doing what you wanted," she allegedly said in the clip. "You controlled me, you broke me, but you never owned me." The message was sent via group chat, reportedly including Diddy's assistants, bodyguards, and even his business manager. Some took it as an emotional meltdown. Others called it her liberation moment. What's even more shocking is that around the same time, Cassie allegedly reconnected with Michael B. Jordan, not to rekindle romance, but to thank him. A brief FaceTime call, mentioned in court but never publicly released, was said to be deeply emotional, but closed. Michael had moved on. Cassie was about to do the same. Shortly after, Cassie began dating Alex Fine, a personal trainer she'd met during her final days with Diddy. The relationship moved quickly, almost suspiciously fast to some, but for Cassie, it represented safety, normalcy. She got engaged in 2019, married that same year, and had a child in 2020. But even as she started a new life, the shadow of Diddy and the ghost of that hidden affair never completely faded, especially now, with the trial dragging it all back into the light. In 2023, when Cassie filed a bombshell lawsuit against Diddy accusing him of rape, abuse, and trafficking, the world was shocked. But for those who had followed her story closely, it felt like something long overdue. Buried inside the filing, one name appeared in whispers, but wasn't officially named until later: Michael B. Jordan. Court insiders revealed that Diddy's legal team was prepared to bring up Cassie's past relationships, including her romantic involvement with both Kid Cudi and Michael, as part of their defense strategy. They argued that Cassie was not a victim, but a willing participant who had options, lovers, and autonomy. But what they didn't anticipate was how Cassie would respond. During her multi-day testimony in court, Cassie confirmed the emotional affair. She didn't deny it. She owned it. She described how Diddy's violence, addiction, and surveillance had driven her into the arms of someone else. She even admitted to using a burner phone because she feared for her safety if Diddy found out. The courtroom reportedly fell silent when she spoke about her time in South Africa, subtly referring to someone who made her feel seen. When asked directly if that person was Michael B. Jordan, she nodded. No theatrics, no denial, just truth. That confession opened a new chapter in the trial, one that focused not just on what Diddy did, but on why Cassie stayed. The prosecution argued that her brief connection with Michael didn't weaken her claims. It strengthened them. It showed just how broken she had become under Diddy's control. Even when given a chance at freedom, she returned. Because she didn't know how to live outside the walls she'd been locked behind for over a decade. Diddy's team tried to spin the affair as infidelity, but the jury, now emotionally invested, saw something else. A woman desperately trying to reclaim her identity. And Michael B. Jordan, despite never testifying, became the emotional centerpiece of that chapter. A reminder of what could have been if she had escaped sooner. As the trial dragged on and more details about Cassie's past came to light, one name continued to trend online: Michael B. Jordan. But while media outlets scrambled to piece together his connection to the Diddy scandal, Michael said absolutely nothing. No statement, no interview, no clarification. And for someone as high-profile as him, that silence said more than words ever could. Sources close to the actor claimed he was blindsided by how the story had resurfaced. He had moved on, focused on his career, and avoided drama since the early 2020s. But now, with his name being mentioned in open court, he was being pulled back into a past he had never publicly acknowledged. That silence became a magnet for speculation. Fans took to social media with theories. Some believed Michael had stayed quiet out of respect for Cassie, refusing to sensationalize something he considered deeply personal. Others suspected legal pressure behind the scenes, perhaps from Diddy's team, had kept him from speaking out. One theory even suggested Michael might be called to testify if the trial escalated further. What made his silence so powerful was the contrast it painted. Diddy, known for flamboyance and media control, was unraveling in public. Cassie, once silent, was now using her voice. But Michael? He stayed exactly where he had always been in this story. On the edge, just out of reach. The man who once offered Cassie comfort was now watching from the sidelines as everything exploded around her. And yet, his absence didn't erase his presence. Every time Cassie mentioned South Africa, the burner phone, or her escape from Diddy's world, Michael's name echoed in the subtext. He might not have been in the courtroom, but the shadow of what he represented, freedom, possibility, and a life outside the madness, hung over every word she said. By the end of her testimony, Cassie was no longer seen as just a celebrity or an alleged victim. She had become something more complicated, more real. Her confessions painted a layered picture. Yes, she admitted to cheating on Diddy. Yes, she helped arrange the infamous freak-offs. Yes, she stayed far longer than most people could understand. But she also explained why. "I wasn't proud of everything I did," she told the court, "but I was trying to survive." When asked about Michael B. Jordan directly, she didn't frame it as scandal. She described it as hope. "He made me feel normal," she said. "Like I wasn't just someone's fantasy or puppet." Her voice reportedly cracked when describing the brief emotional connection, stating, "I wanted to leave, I really did. But when you've been conditioned to fear freedom, it's hard to choose it." It was in those moments that jurors reportedly began to shift. Until then, Cassie's involvement in the alleged parties, drugs, and secrecy made her a complex figure, hard to fully embrace. But once she described the mental warfare she endured, the audience seemed to see her differently. She talked about the guilt she carried, not just for what she endured, but for what she enabled. Her voice trembled when she admitted to helping arrange escorts for Diddy. She wasn't trying to excuse it. She was explaining the cost of compliance. "When you're trapped, you don't even realize how deep it goes until you try to walk away," she said. Michael was never blamed. In fact, Cassie almost seemed to mourn the version of herself that existed during their time together. Brief, but pure. "I was starting to believe I could be someone outside of him," she said. "That maybe love wasn't supposed to hurt like that." And with that, the courtroom fell quiet. It wasn't a tabloid headline anymore. It was a woman finally facing the truth of who she became and why. As the trial entered its next phase, the Cassie Michael B. Jordan chapter began to fade from the headlines. But for the people involved, its impact never truly left. Diddy's legal team continued to struggle with a defense that relied on framing Cassie as inconsistent and complicit. But her emotional testimony, especially about the affair, landed with more gravity than they expected. Cassie returned to her life with husband Alex Fine and their children, still under media scrutiny, but standing firm in her role as a whistleblower. Her courage to speak up, even if it meant revealing her own mistakes, had transformed her from pop star girlfriend to survivor. Public sentiment leaned in her favor. She was no longer silent. She was standing in truth. Michael B. Jordan, for his part, remained quiet. But his silence now read as dignified, even protective. Hollywood insiders said he refused all interview requests related to the trial, declining to exploit the moment. His public appearances stayed polished, and his reputation, while momentarily tied to the scandal, emerged largely intact. Some sources even suggested he had reached out to Cassie privately, but that remains unconfirmed. As for Diddy, the walls continued to close in. New witnesses were scheduled, more lawsuits loomed, and that once unshakable empire now looked fractured, held together by PR statements and high-powered attorneys scrambling to contain the damage. But perhaps the biggest shift was in public awareness. Cassie's affair with Michael B. Jordan had once been whispered gossip. Now, it was a documented part of a larger story, one that asked bigger questions about power, control, trauma, and survival. Not every love story ends in justice, but sometimes just telling the truth is a form of freedom. And in this case, the truth was finally louder than the silence.